Thank you for joining us. I'm Veronica Robinson, great-granddaughter of Henrietta Lacks, granddaughter of Lawrence Lacks, and I'm proud to lead my family's Henrietta Lacks initiative, Healer 100. Today, I'm proud to partner with a project I've been working with Black Maternal Health. As a member of Fund 2 Foundation, Black Maternal Health Equity Project, I'm excited to be joined by Dr. Charis, the period doctor.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Dr. Charis, thank you for coming back and talking to us and taking off your white coat and teaching us how to nurture her, yourself, the community, and our stories and patients. Could you tell us how you became a period doctor and what you do?
Absolutely. So, my name is Dr. Charis Chambers. I am a board-certified OBGYN and also pediatric and adolescent gynecologist. I began my platform, The Period Doctor, to educate people about periods and reproductive health, and to show the representation of being a Black woman in medicine.
I love that because I'm always looking for a caregiver that looks like me.
Yeah, it matters. It does. Now, I want to ask you a question if it's okay.
Let's go.
Now, who was your great-grandmother and what does August 1st mean to you?
My great-grandmother, wow, we can say she was a lot of things. She's the mother of modern medicine.
Yes.
Unknowingly, she would contribute to groundbreaking discoveries. And not only discoveries, she would also open up some of the most uncomfortable conversations that people normally have behind the water cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And things that we normally wouldn't talk about, we now talk about because of the great late Henrietta Lacks. So she was born in Roanoke, Virginia, just to our family. She was just our matriarch,
Yes.
The glue for the family. But when she passed, we didn't know a lot about who Henrietta was.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly we would learn not only who she was as a person, but the person she was, the person she was known as the self. People would call her Henry Lane, Helen Lawson, anything but Henrietta Lacks. And my family, we went on this long journey to figure out, who is Henrietta? Because my great-grandfather, they didn't talk about her. They didn't believe in telling stories that they did. So when we got to start to learn about who Henrietta was, it was like we had to go back to the grave and dig her up and actually watch the elder Lacks, like my grandfather, relive her death. So it took us on a long journey that ended up in a place where Lacks women were saying that my grandmother's story wouldn't be my story, and that we would no longer allow people to tell our stories from their lens, but to actually be the author of our own stories. So powerful. Yeah, and it was hard work. But we made it through, and now we're advocating on so many different levels and platforms, including standing in solidarity with women across the world, making sure that other women who are silenced don't have to feel like they don't have a voice in this, and that they have a stake in their own life, and that's valuable.
And that's part of kind of what I like to do too, even starting as young as teenage and adolescent years. That's why I started the Period Doctor, honestly. I loved being an OBGYN and I loved taking care of older women. But I started asking myself, what does it look like to encourage the younger generation to actually understand their value and their worth and their ability and the need to stand up for themselves earlier? And so that's really why I started my page, to start giving people just tiny little tidbits of education and information to give them hope. And I learned when I was seeing patients, even in the office, when I could explain something to them that no one else would explain, they lit up. And their hope gave me hope. And I was like, oh, this is contagious.
I love that for you. So take me back.
Mm-hmm.
When was that aha moment that said, I need to become the period doctor? I need to share this information. Because we know that we get so much misinformation.
Absolutely.
In the community, especially with younger people.
Mm-hmm.
They get there. When I was growing up, we used to get our information from the news.
Yeah.
And they actually had to do research. Right. But now anyone can be an influencer. Anybody with information, right?
You're exactly
so now you have to fight off all of these sayings and what people think versus what is known. So what made you do this?
So, when I was seeing patients in my office, I would explain different things. And they would say, well, on TikTok, I saw this, or on this social media platform, I saw this. And I started to say, I can't combat these things just in my clinic, right? If I'm just in this room facing one person and their mother, or one person and their grandmother, or whoever brings them in, that is a 2-person audience, when I could have a much larger audience if I leverage social media. And so it kind of came out of frustration. It's like, I can't be as effective as I want to be unless I step out of my comfort zone, which was getting a camera, setting it up in my Houston apartment, and starting to record videos. And when I tell you, those first videos were not very good. But they got better with time, and I became more comfortable when I started to realize the work is so much greater than my discomfort. Being a little bit nervous in front of the camera, it doesn't matter if I'm impacting people. And so it was really that frustration, like, I need to get this word out. And if I want to combat that misinformation, I have to be there where people are getting their information and let them know, one, I have these credentials, I have training, I have education, and I care enough about you to explain it to you in a way that you understand. A lot of people feel like doctors don't explain things. We don't care enough. We just come in and treat patients as a number. And I felt it was really important to say, this doctor actually does care. I do not wish to treat you as a number. And even if you're not my patient, I would love to educate you. And so that's when I started the Period Doctor.
I love that. So like Henrietta, you're a wife, you're an influencer, you're OBGYN, a sister. Tell me, what about Henrietta Legacy can you mostly relate to?
I love that question because I do think the story of Henrietta Lacks is something that every single person can learn from. For me, the most important thing is our inherent power and impact and worth. As Black women, even when we don't see it ourselves. And you touched on when we talked prior to filming that it's important to understand that there was some unintentional impact here, right? It wasn't that Henrietta Lacks was like, I want these special cells, and our inherent value, we don't have to necessarily be the mothers of modern medicine, but we can mother people in beautiful ways and impact generations. And if we really tap into that, our impact can be beyond our wildest imagination. And for me, that is what I tap into when I think about the legacy of Henrietta Lacks.
That's amazing, especially because I was wrong in my head when I thought yeah, she's going to say something like informed consent, because we really think that we have doctors figured out. Like, we know what you're going to say next. We know what you're going to do. We know they're going to see you. It's scary. Yeah. And we know that when we go see you, that we're not going to be heard. So not only are you out here in these streets meeting people where they are, especially the youth on social media, you're also doing a documentary. You just premiered it. That's amazing. Can you tell me more about your documentary, the title, and what can we look forward to seeing in it?
Yeah. So with a partnership with a nonprofit, I was able to do a documentary called Me Period. And of course, if I hear the word period, I'm down. But it is ultimately a cross-generational conversation between Black mothers and daughters about that transition of periods and puberty and what that looks like, and how there's a lot of shared experiences, both good and bad, when it relates to how our bodies transition from, either girlhood to womanhood or childhood to adulthood. I love it because it encourages conversations, and conversations like this one where we speak about the legacies that we carry. We don't just talk about generational curses, but we talk about generational gifts. We talk about all of the things that we are capable of as a people. And I think having those conversations early and often is the most important aspect of this. So I love the idea of creating a film that gets you talking when you leave that film. And so that's why I'm hopeful that the audience will take away when they do get to see it. It's not something that's available for public viewing right now, but we're doing private screenings around the country, doing different film festivals. It's one of the most exciting and amazing projects I've ever been a part of.
Like how? Just how? One, you're baking a baby.
Yes.
Two, you're influencing out here in these social media streets, as I like to call it. how do you have time for all these things? And not only that, like, how did you get mothers and daughters to sit down? Because I know one of the things that I combat a lot is I don't want to experience the things that my great-grandmother experienced.
Exactly.
But however, the much needed and necessary conversation that we are not having in our homes,
Right.
because we don't want to realize that part of our mom is in us.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so how did you get people to agree to this?
Yeah.
And how awkward was to sit down?
So it wasn't just me. I actually got called in to do this project by an amazing organization, the Black Women's Health Imperative. They are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, founded by Billy Avery. It's one of the oldest nonprofits that is dedicated to the health of Black women. They got the mothers together and their daughters, but my job was to create a safe space, as a true safe environment on the set where they felt comfortable enough to talk about these things. As you pointed out, there can be some discomfort, especially when we've had traumatic experiences, right? When we've been mistreated. There is this story oftentimes, especially in Black families, where I don't actually want the same thing to happen to my daughter that happened to me. But we cannot prevent those things if we never talk about it. And so creating a space where it says, what you went through is valid, your desire to make it better for your child is valid, and it's okay to talk about it is really the thing I think that makes this documentary so special. In fact, we just kind of screened it at Essence Film Festival and won the Audience Award for Best Feature Documentary, which says a lot. I think it says that people want to have these conversations, that people have an emotional and significant response to talking about these things that we don't typically talk about. And that's why I love the legacy of your great-grandmother, right? Because of her story, we were made to discuss things that we didn't bring up a lot, like how medicine can be harmful, how really amazing institutions that may have good intentions can still harm people against their consent, how it has to be better, how health equity matters, and how social justice has a really important role in medicine. So anytime we're having conversations, the important thing is safety and value and awareness so that people feel safe enough to talk about the things that make them uncomfortable.
So how do you nurture your family's legacy, and how do you nurture your own story?
You know, I think nurturing is something that we forget is actually one of those generational gifts. As Black women, we are the nurturers. We have been the nurturers, and nurturing is actually something that's super inherent to who we are. And so I want us to oftentimes remember that aspect and tap into it. I'm nurtured by my sisters. I'm nurtured by my friends, my sorority sisters. I'm nurtured by my aunts. My family has found a way to have these conversations that are uncomfortable, but to always get grounded back in love and support. And that's what nurturing really is. I want to kind of throw that back to you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Your family has seen so much. Obviously, you've got this wonderful legacy of Henrietta Lacks, but as you mentioned, there's other legacies in your family and other stories as well. How does your family help nurture each other through your health journeys?
How do we nurture each other through our health journeys? One, we support each other by going to the doctors together, because if one's uncomfortable and asking a question, the other one will. We're a family of mostly women, so we're mouthy, so there's not a lot who won't ask questions. But for those who are uncomfortable and just go to the doctors, like my Uncle Sonny, when he had his triple bypass surgery, his thought process was, I just want to live. As it is for a lot of people, when we go to the doctors, we don't go because it's the thing to do. We go because we just want to live, because there's somebody at home, there's someone who depends on us.
Yes.
So part of nurturing her for us is being sure that we care for each other so that we can continue to be advocates and use our platforms in a way to tell people, like, it's okay that the doctors can be a safe space. There is a cry and there is a desperate need to bridge the gap between science and community, because we know that we cannot continue to be left behind.
Right.
So in our family, through Healer 100, nothing about us without us. We have to be progressive. We have to become part of the movement. And we have to say that our lives matter too, especially because so often we're hearing or seeing tabloids and it's always saying that the minority, the Black and brown communities suffer at a higher rate. The Black and brown communities are suffering fatalities. The Black and brown community are not getting preventive medicines. And those things have been occurring since before my great-grandmother. We've been hearing about these disparities for years. And, so that's kind of like how our family nurtures. We're just like, no more can we allow these things to happen. We can be a part of the change that we all need and desire. So that's how we celebrate the legacy of Henrietta. That's how we celebrate women by standing in solidarity, as well as men. I remember going to the White House and someone said to me, they said, and it was in a condescending way, why is it important for you to be at this table? And it was just like, wow, are we still there?
Right.
Are we still in 1951 when my great-grandmother received care? Do you still not see the importance of my voice at a table when people that look like me are dying?
Right. If not you, then who?
Yes. So it was like, I remember looking at him and I was like, I could scream. And I told him it was important for people like me that come from the communities that we live in.
Yes.
To not just be a seat at the table, to be a voice at the table, because he couldn't advocate for people the way that we could advocate for the people in the communities we come from.
I specifically like the calling in of the men and acknowledging the role that men have in society when it comes to supporting women and what we go through. This isn't just work for Black women to make Black women feel safe. It is everyone's job. It's not even just the job of the Black community. It is everyone's job. I love that you said that we could bridge medicine and community and it kind of standing in that gap. That's what I try to do with my platform, to show that there can be community and there can be medicine, there can be accuracy and understanding and compassion, and all of that can exist at the same time. So thank you for sharing.
I appreciate that. So when we talk about trauma, which my family know far too well, I wanted to know what gives you hope.
So I feel hope when I see people taking situations like your families where other people might feel broken and completely devastated and might feel essentially hopeless, and turning that into not just hope, but like a true mission and a calling to improve things for other people. I think taking situations and scenarios that we otherwise wouldn't have chosen and reframing that to author our own stories is one of the most powerful things we can do. And it models to people who may have come from different situations, who may have survived really difficult things, that you can have hope and you can have purpose. And so that gives me hope that the purpose that people will find, even through some of those darkest times, can really improve our world around us.
I love that. In honor of my great-grandmother, Henrietta Lacks, I think the Lacks family, what hope looks like is we no longer are victims in our stories, but we're victors. Because as you said, we're now telling our story and not allowing anyone else to tell it for us.
Yes.
Thanks again, Dr. Charis, for being a trusted voice in the white coat for us and to tell us what equity and access truly look like.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely.
If you're interested in keeping it going, you can join the conversation with the Lacks family at healer100.org or celebrate Healer.
And you can follow me on Instagram at @theperiod_doctor.
If you want to learn more about Fund 2 Foundation, Nurture Her Village, follow on Instagram at BMH Equity.